know the term, we didn't know the supplier, we didn't know any of this. And so people were engaged, but they could only ask so many questions because it was theoretical. And now we have the actual data, so this should be a whole nother experience and opportunity to do education. So I'll be back in all of your communities, and we'll use those same methods again, but with more detail this time to be able to share this information with your constituents before the opt-out period begins.
Well, eventually, but. Right. Well, do we have any questions for them?
Other questions?
As far as Charles?
Brett, I saw you just joined, joined a little bit late. I don't know if you have any questions.
No, just.
Not to put you on the spot. Okay.
Yeah, no. I've been listening to whatever this is saying. That might actually end up answering one of my questions.
Great. And we can also, if folks did join late, I can share the full recording or the slides. Either of those are available. So, do folks have other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Yes, Gilbert Knapp in Spencer, Village of Spencer. I'd like to try to recap this opt-in, opt-out kind of stuff. And that has to do with if the village were to join this or enroll in this program, that means all residents currently with NYSEG and not with an ESCO are automatically enrolled unless they opt out in June.
Correct.
So far good. Those
So far, so good.
Those people who are in the village with an ESCO are not automatically enrolled, correct?
Correct.
And they could opt in based on the vagaries of their penalties, whether it makes sense for them in June or not. And if they choose not to, but their contract expires next October, they can opt in at that time?
Correct. Yeah, and so they could opt in June, but they could opt in at any time. We would just want to make sure it made financial sense for them.
Right.
If that makes sense.
I just wanted to understand that somebody on an ESCO would be permitted sometime in the middle of this 24-month period to opt in. The reason being they might have delayed because they had some kind of a serious penalty.
Absolutely, yes. And if they leave, what will happen is if their contract with the ESCO ends and they go back to the utility, then we will pick them up when we get the data from NYSEG every month of the potential new account. Because every month, once you have the CCA, as Mike was asking earlier, the new residents in your community get this option with the same price. So if they have left their ESCO and returned to NYSEG, they will be treated as a new customer.
Yes, okay.
Do they have that, so there's that new customer? So I have a question. This contract is valid for 2 years, after June or July, right?
Correct?
At what point do we renew this contract? Like how much notice is there?
Sure. We are required by the order to engage you 180 days in advance of the end of the contract. So that's quite a few months. I think that's probably enough time, but if there was some reason that you needed it to be farther ahead than that to start having conversations, we could, recognizing that two things. One, obviously the pricing is the same as it is now in the sense that we would have to wait just like we did this time. And then the other piece is that we expect that we'll have probably a slightly different proposal next time because we're continuing to evolve the program. We're continuing to evolve the program and figure out the way to offer the most value. So it might look a little different next time if we have another way to offer more value, if that makes sense.
This is Ken Sutton from Village of Spencer.
Hi, Ken.
Now, it says here that there's no early termination fee. But you said before that you can only opt out in the first 30 days?
So that's opt out. So if you don't opt out, you get moved to the CCA. If you're in the
Okay.
CCA, and at any point in those 24 months, you decide, it could be 6 months in, it could be a year in, it could be 18 months in, that you decide you no longer want to be in the CCA, you can leave. That's the thing that you can't normally
That's
do,
not opting
and
out,
that
that's
has no
leaving.
termination fee.
Opting
Opting
out.
out also has no
Opting out is
termination
legit.
fee, but leaving the CCA has no termination fee at any point.
Okay, great. Okay, great, thank you.
Of course. Do you folks have other questions?
All right, we have one. If you're
Okay.
in an ESCO and you leave them and you go back to NICEAG, do you automatically get put into the CCA, or is there an opt-out period for that?
Right, you go through the same you go through the same opt-out period, that NICEAG customers, NICEAG supply customers have now. So you have a letter and you have a 30-day opt-out period, same process.
So you'll be with NICEAG.
The caveat, yeah, there would be, if there was no proactive action taken, then there would be time with NICEAG. If the customer called Mega or Constellation and said, my contract is ending, and they knew they wanted to switch immediately, I think we could make it so there was no gap, but the customer would have to be proactive, because we don't know when their contract is going to end. So they would have to be proactive and let us know, and I think we could make it be no transition time at all. The other thing is I don't know if folks are also thinking this, but if folks are leaving an ESCO and they want to be with NICEAG, and that is why they're leaving the ESCO, and they don't want to be in the CCA, they just want to be with NICEAG, they can put a block on their account, which will mean that any ESCO cannot serve them, whether it be the CCA or anything. And so if that's the particular concern and fear that your residents have, then, we can explain how to do that for them too. We know some people are extremely loyal to NICEAG, and that's what they want to do. So it is an option to do that. And then they won't get asked to participate in the CCA. Some people have that now, and they won't be asked to participate in the CCA, even though they're with NICEAG. Again, it's all about choice. Lots of choice.
How are the ESCO people notified? this
Other
exists?
questions? I want to be respectful of everyone's time.
What do you want to say about?
How do the ESCO people know that the CCA even goes on? Do they get the same letters that everybody else gets?
No, so we can't send them a letter because we're not allowed to have their information. So they will need to find out by either, the paper, by if you have social media, by the news, by any kind of municipal communication, whether that be, I know some municipalities have water and sewer bills and they have a little message where they can put things. Everyone has sort of had, different ways to communicate with their constituents. And so we would use everything except the opt-out letter will go to everyone, right? So if you have a village newsletter or something or you have social media, it will just be generally sharing the information. I know some folks have been very concerned about the predatory practices of ESCOs, and I know in many of your communities we did help lots of people over the last 2 years that were paying 14 cents instead of 5. But we're going to have to just rely on education to find them. It's all we can really do. But I have a loud voice, and I move my hands a lot, so maybe it'll attract enough attention that they'll notice. No, I'm just being silly. It's getting late, I'm getting punchy.
How does this work? Can we just talk in?
Yep, I can hear you. Who is it?
This is Brett.
Okay, Brett, what's your question?
Well, I heard the end to tail end of this, response before, but I want to clarify. This has to be signed, or you're hoping this to be signed by tomorrow at 5 o'clock, correct?
Right, you have a board meeting, I understand. I think I can probably work it out with Bob, since I have his cell phone number and I know he answers it, that he will send it after your board meeting is done. And that I'm allowed to call him if I don't have it by, 9 o'clock or something when your board meeting is over.
Okay, I just want to clarify that, because he was under the impression we had to have it before, and I feel just as a matter of this being a decision on behalf of the town, that it should be in a public meeting discussed one last time.
All right, so I will communicate with all of you. I'll send an email after this to the whole board, and just tell him that because I have his cell phone number, I know he answers it, that I will extend that deadline, but only for those folks. There's another municipality that has a board meeting tomorrow night, and we've done the same thing for them, just knowing that that was their process. Yep.
I just want to clarify that way we can at least have an open discussion in public, as we have in the past.
Sure.
Just for all transparency purposes.
Of course. I know, we have had, at 5:30, there were a couple municipalities that had big viewing parties and invited the public. So and maybe that's what the village of Spencer is doing right now, I'm not sure. It's possible. So everybody's sort of taken a different process.
That's what we did a week ago. We had a special meeting right now. We're live.
That's great. I look forward to meeting all the residents, if I haven't met them already.
Community center.
Are there any other,
Can you
oh,
have,
Jerry,
can you
yes.
have beer at the community center?
You love me so much, Louise.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm
What's the
just
beer?
wondering, since we have climate goals, and it's been, a paper just came out last week, which shows that 4.1% of methane is leaking into the atmosphere, and we're ramping up methane as fast as we can possibly do that, where we need to be getting it into the ground. And here we have 0.3% difference between a default renewable energy plan and a dirty 42% gas plan, a 38% nuclear plan. Why don't we all go renewable at that, or why didn't even Constellation try to make that 0.3% go away so that we could do the right thing
So I can,
for the climate?
yeah, I can answer that question for you, Jerry, and I am as disappointed as you are. As you know, I spent a decade of my life as a sustainability professional doing this work for a small village, which is a university, and I can tell you exactly what happened. So for a CCA to be 100% renewable in New York, we have to use what are called Tier 2 resources, and those are existing renewable energy assets that the utility is not buying, because the utility has compliance obligations, energy services companies have compliance obligations, and we're only building those renewables fast enough, and we're actually not even building them fast enough to meet those compliance obligations. So the voluntary market, which CPA is, can only buy Tier 2 resources. Most of our Tier 2 resources in New York State are hydro. I happen to live in the land where they are, and I personally know many of the largest owners of those assets in New York State. Years ago, when the Clean Energy Standard came out, there was supposed to be a price for the new renewable assets that were going to be built, and the existing renewable assets to help them maintain their infrastructure and maintain our baseline of both power and renewable energy in New York State. At the last minute, that compensation for Tier 2 was removed from the Clean Energy Standard, and since has left existing renewable assets without any compensation for their renewable energy, and they're a valuable part of our grid mix. When New York State, in January, when it switched to Democratic control, a bill that had been getting no traction in the Senate passed the Senate on Wednesday, literally Wednesday of last week, that would provide a Tier 2 price that is 75% of the tier 1 price, which is why you see 3 mils difference between the grid mix and the renewable mix. The timing is unfortunate in a lot of ways, and I know exactly why it is. I can't make it change. I tried very hard. I was on the phone a lot on Friday, and this is what the suppliers now feel that they can charge.
Okay, as a
If they would have
follow-up to
passed the
that-
bill. Mm-hmm.
As a follow-up to that, in lieu of the fact that it just seems to always be about price, and the disparity is so small, and you feel from your background that this is a great disservice to the people and the climate, then why instead does Megan not talk about source and the fact that NYSEG has 42% 40% natural gas versus Constellation's 42%, that NYSEG has 36% nuclear versus Constellation's 39% nuclear, and that NYSEG has 14% hydro, and it's been going down every year, the amount of renewable that NYSEG is offering. But Constellation has a pathetic 9% hydro. So, and that is why the nitrous oxide, the sulfur dioxide, and the CO2 rates are higher for Constellation, because they're doing worse climate-wise than even NYSEG, and NYSEG is pretty bad. So I wish that Mega would talk about source, and we don't want to aggregate, at least I don't want to aggregate people for going in the wrong direction and promoting the increased use because of lower price of something that's going to harm us and our children and our grandchildren. So I just wish that Mega would get in the source business instead of the price business, when the price is so very close that you could let the all of these towns and villages and cities know what they're really aggregating for. It's Twinkies, not broccoli. If you put it in the food realm, you aggregate for what you love, your children. You know, that's what you aggregate for, what's going to protect them. So I think we need to talk about source, and I appreciate all the work you've done, but it's more than price.
Well, and I think you will really appreciate where Mega is heading then, because we are very much focused on force and taking the control from selecting a source from the EXO and having it be much more community focused, and that's where we're headed now. So it's not for this moment in time, but it is for when those 24 months end. That is the conversation that we'll be having. So we are going there, and we've heard you loud and clear. So
yeah, I heard her too, and I think she brought up an excellent point. It's Trish again. So I think that would be an ideal thing, Louise, to continue. You have that pressure now. You can put that pressure on Constellation to make better and greener choices. So that would be great. I would appreciate that too.
absolutely, and I believe me, I have a colleague who was on the phone this morning when we were all discussing this, and I was personally very upset that I didn't have a closer number to share with you. I really sincerely am, and we are doing everything we can to make it better next time by designing the CCA in a different way so we have more control for you. So.
That would be great. Thank you, Louise. Thank you for doing that, and the other woman for her excellent comment. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Louise, this is, excuse me, Louise, this is Ken Tuxton, Bill Dispenser again.
Yes, Ken.
I just have one more question. Do we need a copy of the meeting minutes to send to you, or are you good with just the
No.
sign sheet?
Just the sign sheet is fine.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Any other
Thank you for
questions?
the great webinar, appreciate it.
You're very welcome. about at an hour. All right, we're about at an hour, so I'm gonna say we're officially over. Folks, you have my, well, here, I'll scroll forward one more time. I think everyone should by this time have my email and cell phone number. If you have questions, please call me. You know, I do have a couple webinars tomorrow, so if you don't reach me, I'll get back to you. If you want to watch again, you're welcome to do that. There's 3 more times tomorrow, so thank you so much, and feel free to be in touch if you have additional questions. Have a great night.
Are we done, Mike, with that? I have a quick question for us that I was trying to get, because I don't have my NICEAG bill with me. I took all my NICEAG bills and wrote down all the kilowatt hour, price per kilowatt hour. But she was saying that there was the merchant fee, which won't be included in this, but there was another fee that was on that bill. And I thought there was a couple of numbers she gave, 1.4%, 2.8%. Okay, I don't know what that is.
That's my bill.
There you go. Turn it. Damn, you're
Good for you, you think of everything.
I got a hot tub.
Jeez. How come it's yours?
I know, yeah, it's like something.
So
But here's these merchant fees.
all right, that's the merchant fee, but she said that will all go away because, what the reasoning that it was gonna go away.
Right.
But, there was another fee on there that was,
I didn't see the other fee. I looked at like 9 of my bills, I didn't see any other fees.
well, I'm pretty sure that she was referencing another fee that was included in this price that was on our NICEAG bill, that was an add-on, I thought, and it was way back in the beginning, it was a range, I think like 1.4% to 2.8%. Does anybody remember this?
I thought she was saying that, the way I took it is, there are these fees and they're wrapped in, I thought they were wrapped
Into the price of the Constellation.
yeah.
That's what I understood, but the thing I wanna know is the number, cause I'm looking at my NICEAG numbers here, and when I average them out, they don't come as high as this Constellation number, so I'm wondering, if this Constellation number is some other fees that I didn't, these were just my straight kilowatt hour numbers, were there some other fees that I didn't get?
So I did the same thing. I took the supply charge, this number.
Yep.
Over 9 months,
Yep.
and I got this,
Wait, I can't read it, Mike, tell me what it is.
0.0477.
Now, that would be a typical one, so as I'm looking mine over here, the numbers I wrote down, this last month's was 0.522, it was a little
Right.
higher than usual. Before that, it was 446, 438, 496, 482, 425, 475, 459, and then the April spike, which I've got down here is 0732, but on her spike thing, it was 08 something, which didn't match my bill. But maybe that's, her spike is averaging residential and
Oh, right, true. We're just looking at
commercial and
residential.
some other things, I'm not sure. So other than that spike, and then March was 052, February was 049, 0444. So other than that spike, it's been in the 4.5 range.
Right.
Not as low as 4, but the spike took it up above. Of course, that's part of our deal here about if we're going to go to one of these things is to protect us from a spike. Anyway, those are some of the numbers, but.
Talk about this spike?
That's what.
Yeah, that's the spike, and there's a number up there on it.
Yeah, it's,
0.08.
0.865.
Yeah, which was not my spike in my particular, look at that. That was the spike, that was the spike on the residential, I also did my business.
Oh, that's it.
Business spike. No, I don't have it right here in front of me. But that's a piece of the money situation, if there's a piece on that bill, which I think there is, that Constellation fee was gonna cover, and then I think it was 1.4 or 1 to 2.8%. And I bring all that up just in the number thing, so if it was a couple percent of one of these, like 0.0450, that would be another 0.04, it'd be a 0.9 or something, it would be a little bit more. If we're trying to compare apples to apples,
Correct.
You're also charging us like a percentage onto that for managing it, right?
That's how they make money. right?
Yeah.
That's included in the price there, right?
Right.
Is that part of it?
So there's not another fee for us or anything, it's in that 5.0.
Right.
So that's another piece of why it's more than our average of NICEAG.
Correct. You gotta decide if this is a good idea or not.
Well, of course
Do
we
you
do.
have another comment? Okay, there's a couple things. The base plan of Brown and nuclear energy is really insulting. That's number one, you probably gleaned that. The renewable price is equitable with what is available now. Clearview 5.09.
Yeah.
You have maybe last month's version, I do it every month, up to date. Well, it's the same, Clearview's is the same, this
509
is
is what
last
we
month, 509 cents, and that is for 100% New York State hydro. Now, I think Constellation in the past has been universal in its 100% wind. So if you have a preference there, that may help you weigh. If you like hydro better than wind or wind better than hydro, well, they're not offering hydro, they're offering, I'm thinking they're offering wind because that's what Constellation has done. Now, what I'm surprised about is that in the RFP, I have the town version, if it may be a little different. They were, it was surprising that they said the NIGATS data, they have to be in the NIGAT system, which is the New York Generation Attribution Tracking System, which says that they're buying renewable energy credits from New York State, not from Texas, California, and everywhere else, because we care about being, New York actually cares about being local, you know, the Public Service Commission does. So they want people to buy our energy. They want these companies to buy our energy. Now, I thought that Constellation had a plan where they're buying national wind. So that's my question, and I can't operate this tiny device to see the big NIGATS chart to see whether that's true or not. I could find out tonight and email you, but then it's too late because you have to forcibly make your decision tonight or something, I don't know. For some odd reason that's not very democratic, but I just hate the process, so it would be hard for me. If I were sitting on this board, I would say no, because you're forcing us to do this against our will right now. But I'm not on the board.
We're not particularly pleased with being put under the gun like this. We did not anticipate having this small a time frame to make a decision. We're not pleased with that.
You're pleased with what?
We're not pleased with
Oh,
being
not
put under the
pleased.
gun in this time frame. We were not led to believe that that would be the case.
When
Yeah.
they pitched it to us, it wasn't quite laid out that way. But
Yeah.
here we are.
And the fact that the public hearing, you know, is early on to let them go out to bid rather than putting it before the public, whose bills it affects. And 80% of that public, you have to understand, will choose it as a default because they don't know what to do with an opt-out letter. I don't understand this legalese, even though it's, you know how legalese can be much worse than the opt-out letter, and yet people will look at that and say, I can't deal with it, let's just let them do what they're gonna do, because that's what they do. The government, my village, is getting just like the rest of the government and telling me what to do. See, they turn it over to you, folks. They turn it over early on, so they don't have their hands dirty. It's all on you if people are mad. You know, that's the other thing. it gets me a little, there's so much that gets me ticked about this. But by and large, if you wanna look at it realistically, the renewable plan, if it weren't for being maybe National Wind or whatever it is out there somewhere, is not a bad price when you think of a 2-year plan, because in 2 years, natural gas, because it's just harder and harder to get all the time, because we're just doing it deeper and dirtier, you know, and more expensively. So it'll be more expensive. So locking in a cost is a really good thing, because NYSEG's not doing that, right? So it's a tough one. Okay, my vote, if I'm a board member, is we go with a default renewable plan and let those other people opt down. She was struggling for words, but that's what it is, an opt down in terms of what it would do for the country, or, you know, the globe, the atmosphere, and in terms of what it would do, you know, price-wise, it's not any different, really. It's per kilowatt hour, even with your hot tub. It's not gonna make a hill of beans, you know, difference.
Johnson left, I was gonna bust him.
So the town of Owego, is the town of Owego in the same CCA as us?
They're not,
They're in a different.
they're in a different group.
With that.
Right.
Yeah, no, they're separate CCA, separate.
They're not.
Well, oh, the same Apple aggregation, the same aggregate.
And we're in,
And so is Spencer, Village of Spencer, Town of Spencer, Village of Newark Valley.
Is the town of Wego gonna have a different price?
town of
Oh, I
Wego
see, I
has
see.
two
Stage
choices.
five.
I don't believe I have any meeting
We have one,
about this.
Town of Wego has two choices of what group to be in.
yeah.
New York.
They
Oh,
really
okay.
need to let me know when they didn't.
Stellium or somebody else again?
We probably got more than one offer.
Gotcha.
They said they had 4,
The town did,
yeah.
and so they picked a different one.
I
They
don't know,
said
they're
what
gonna- they're
about-
gonna
what did they
decide
say?
tomorrow.
Oh, they haven't decided. Okay. The town hasn't decided yet. I'm just curious.
As far as I know.
So, interestingly enough, whatever way we're gonna do, it is interesting that we would have an option that we didn't understand before, that if we did pick 100% renewable for the default, and people were informed, and they were informed that this was gonna be the price, blah, blah, and if they didn't want that, they could have the lower price of the non-renewable, and they could opt down. That is an interesting.
could also add that.
Right.
Of course they got, yeah, we understand.
Yeah.
Well, no, I understand that.
And keep what they have today.
But they could opt down, that's something that we're not
No.
privy to before.
Well, last time it was, they were gonna look into that, they didn't really have an answer. So I guess they did take that feedback pretty well.
She never got back to us with the number of what it would be if we went with the standard for somebody, an individual to opt up. Remember she couldn't find that
Or just said it was
number?
a little bit more.
That's what she said, but we wanted that number and she didn't find it for us.
Right.
That would be an interesting piece of information to know.
So that's not the real number? That's what she said?
No,
That's the number of
if the
issues
whole, if we opt in for our whole area, our whole village,
Oh,
for the 100% renewable, it's 0.542. But if we opt in for the lower one,
I see.
and some individual wants to opt up to the renewable,
number's
it's
not.
not that number, it was more than that number, and she didn't have it for us. She was fudging around about that, she didn't have it, or she didn't want, I don't think she didn't want to tell us, she just didn't, whatever, she didn't give us that number.
She's very smooth.
And they always.
We figured that out.
I'm Bruce Gillette, the new Presbyterian pastor. 2 weeks from now, I will be a homeowner at 347 Main Street. The question I have for you, I'm sorry I came late, I was with somebody on a walking clinic. The question I have for you is, what is the difference in price for the average energy used in the village for 100% renewable versus opting irresponsibly for the non-renewable? What's the savings by going dirty?
I'm gonna ask the mayor a question about that. If you want, would you give us your information on your bill? What's your?
3/10 of a cent.
No, but I'm annually, what, you know.
This was just a feel. Hot tub mayor, what's
Turn it
your
back
bill?
Well, I'm probably the worst guy, right?
Well, that will give us a little feel of somebody and what it might be. I don't,
Got a hot tub and this is February or March's bill, so it's probably the worst one
By the
we've
way,
ever
there's a
seen.
picture of ice water back there, anybody wants.
All right, so I used 1,082 kilowatt hours.
1,082.
Yes. And that was an actual read.
That's a crap load.
That's a crap load, yeah.
What's that, and
Somebody have a
that was at,
calculator.
oh, at four, I can't read it, but four.
497.
497, you did 1,082, and your bill is $53.61 for that.
I mean, the whole village.
Right.
And so if
On
we-
average, what's-
Let's use, we're just gonna try to, we don't have that information, we're gonna try to give you a feel of that information. So let's pretend that this other one here is 509 as opposed to 542. So that's
1,082.
33 hundredths more. So if Mike's was 33 hundredths more, it would be 4,973, so it would be 5,2.
Either way.
It would be 5,230, 5,230.
All right, so if I choose the dirty option for my hot tub.
Yep.
That bill would be $55.09 instead of $53.
So it's like $2 difference?
No, he hasn't got there yet.
Of that current month of
No,
nice
wait for it, wait for it.
And then if I choose 1,082 times the cleaner option, that bill is $58.64.
And what was the first one?
$55.09.
55 and 58, so it would, for you using 1,000, it would be $3 more electric. to use.
$3.55.
And that's a more high energy use month for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so annually, we're talking maybe $20 for somebody who doesn't have a hot tub and, you know.
Probably.